Thank you all for joining us today. I know it's always hard to break away from NAB and all that's happening on the show floor, but today we're fortunate to have Eric Girard, Director of Engineering, TV Technologies from FanDuel with us, and David Sabine, one of my colleagues, who's a principal ProServe cloud architect, who's been helping a number of customers with their broadcast transformations. And as we've been working with a variety of customers, I think many of you are familiar with whatever the project is. There's the technical aspect, there's the workflow aspect, and then oftentimes some of the biggest challenges come around the organizational aspect and the change transformation, change management aspect. And today we're fortunate to have Eric, who's been leading a lot of the transformation that FanDuel has been doing, with us to talk about some of his experiences and best practices, as well as David, who's been an integral part of that transformation. Eric, thank you for joining us. And can you please tell the audience a little bit about FanDuel TV?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Girard. Like Ollie said, I'm a director of engineering over at FanDuel. I help with our media and entertainment products. Up on screen, you're seeing where we're broadcasting to various OTT platforms, MVPD partners, cable and satellite platforms, as well as some of our fast channel infrastructure. And then we also have some sports that we're broadcasting. So we broadcast 70,000 horse races each year through FanDuel TV, and we think of those as individual events. So that's an individual live event that occurs for 2 to 3 minutes, but it requires all the same bells and whistles that you would for a 3 or 4 hour event. You have to check it in. You have to make sure it's good. You have to get ready to rock and roll to be able to make it available for production, all the way through distribution to all of those endpoint providers. We also have studios where we produce the shows Up and Adams and Run It Back, as well as a lot of our horse racing programming. And what we're really doing is curating a watch and wager experience for our customers. So we're interoperating with our race book, our sports book, and our predictions apps to be able to create narratives for customers to be informed on what to participate, whether it's a horse race or a football game or a basketball game, whatever your interest is we're trying to facilitate that need. We also broadcast a lot on social media as well, and that has a huge uptick. But think of a broadcast provider, a signal acquisition provider, and a distribution partner all in one. We're doing all of that in our Los Angeles studios.
That's a lot going on, and you have all of like the content creation side of things as well. And as you were telling the audience about all of the things you do, I think, I remember one time when we were in California together, and you were getting a call in a Slack about someone from HQ wanting you to cover like a decision made that there's probably some viewership for some certain type of sporting event around the world, and all of a sudden you had to figure out how to spin up that production. And can you describe for the audience a little bit more the catalyst and like some of the challenges that you were facing with the traditional broadcast infrastructure that you had, and the catalyst to moving towards more of the cloud production capabilities?
For me specifically, it was time to market. So the business would come to me and they would say, can you broadcast this ping pong event, a WTT, an entire tournament? I go, yeah. I go, well, when is it broadcasting? And they go, well, this weekend, and it's Wednesday. So if you think about that in a traditional broadcast sense, if you're an on-premise infrastructure and you don't have a lot of scalable infrastructure to meet that demand, you would have to procure equipment, you would have to bring it up, and you would have to QA, QC it, stand it all up. And really, we weren't equipped to handle those types of problem statements with the infrastructure that we had. We weren't that flexible to be able to meet the need of the business. So AWS made a lot of sense to us, and where we were able to create repeatable infrastructure on demand to meet those types of business requirements. That's where AWS became a tremendous partner with us, as well as some marketplace applications. We have a really robust infrastructure with a lot of partners that are made available through the AWS marketplace.
And you had the vision and saw the value and the elasticity, the scalability, the agility that the cloud and AWS and our partners could provide. But undoubtedly, there were some, we don't have to name names, but there were probably some folks who were expressing concerns about this approach. And what were some of those concerns, and how were you able to start addressing those concerns?
Well, when you broadcast your channels with the reliability that you've had for 20 plus years, FanDuel TV have had several iterations of its brand throughout the years, but we had been in that facility for a long time. So when we go back to our operational counterparts, they say, can we trust this infrastructure? What is this thing you're building? How do we understand it? How do we take ownership of it if you build it? So that was a lot of the resistance initially that I ran into. But once you're able to find a few applications that are able to abstract the complexity of AWS, which there are really great providers on the floor that do this, the operations team picks this up and they actually start to fall in love with it very quickly.
So it's been an exciting journey over the last, few months, or many months actually. Lots of different teams involved, obviously on the FanDuel side, on the AWS side, some of our partners as well. I see a representative in the front row here from Monks. Say hi, Wes. Hi, Wes. What was some of the, maybe, we had great successes along the way, but what were some maybe of the pitfalls and challenges that you can remember for that journey? And, was there a point in the journey where you realized that organizational change was required to support that technology journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't even know what I don't know. So sometimes I don't even know what questions to ask, but I know that I can go to AWS Professional Services, or I can go to Monks, a partner SA, and say, I don't know this space well enough to be effective. How can you help me become effective within my organization? And they go, well, there's like 2 or 3 different ways to do this. And, but you really have to choose the way that's best for you. And I sat down with my leadership teams and I said, hey, we have this other entire division at FanDuel called FanDuel Technology. And my team, my engineering team, sits in marketing because we're a marketing division of the company. And we explored building shared service models with the rest of FanDuel Technology. And it seemed like a wonderful idea. Everybody was on board with that until you asked to get in their backlog. And they have product velocity and time to market just the same as I do. And if I'm stealing their engineering resource time, it becomes a problem statement for the bigger business. But where AWS was able to come in, and partners like Monks, is say, hey, we can be a lever for you in some capacities, but long term, you're going to have to think about how you have an organization within FanDuel that can ultimately support you, because we'll get you up and running, but we're going to go and we're going to do something else eventually. So that's the beginnings of all of this. And really it started as some really good internal discussions, but then some very poignant discussions with some consulting partners.
And so ultimately you put together like an LCP core team. So maybe we could talk a little bit about what were the roles and skills, responsibilities within that team to address the challenges, and, how do they start to break down the silos that might exist between traditional broadcast and cloud type thinking?
So with the resistance, I want to say resistance, but, the inability to create a truly effective shared service model to where you can have internal scrum teams from other parts of the business supporting you. I had to take a real good look at myself and, come back to the business and say, hey, we need a team on this side of the fence that can build and support ourselves. So create a DevOps model within broadcast. And I had the luxury of being able to experiment with that model. I come from traditional broadcasters. I've worked at a few of these 3-letter names, and I know that, some other people don't have that type of lever to be able to experiment with that type of organizational change. So for me, it was really effective to be able to have that learning, to be able to take it back to the business and say, hey, we actually need to hire cloud engineers. We need to hire network engineers. We need to hire software engineers to embark on this journey. And it's not like we were not already on this journey. We had been on this journey before we got into the LCP for 2 or 3 years with AWS. So we had a lot of infrastructure, but it was a lot of manual brute force deployments. We weren't automating anything with CI/CD or Terraform, writing Ansible scripts. And a lot of this is, jargon that I had to learn along the way. And I had to figure out the right individuals to bring on my team to truly be effective. But with the help of not just, our SI partners, but our internal teams, we were able to start to create a well-versed organization under FanDuel technologies, TV technologies that had incredible velocity, but expanded such a large tech stack that we're pretty much capable and ready to build anything now.
I think, one of the things I observe, on many of these projects, including with FanDuel, is it's very important to be able to sell the vision to all the different stakeholders within the company. So very often there might be, and thinking about these potential silos, very often, maybe the broadcast engineering team feel a little bit, unsure or uncertain about this new technology, and that kind of education process, making sure that they are comfortable with the risks that they might perceive and understand the technology that's being implemented is a critical part of winning the whole team over and bringing everyone along with you on the journey, I think.
Broadcast engineers are superheroes. And I say that because I have seen it not just here at FanDuel, but in my entire career. Broadcast engineers pick up technology quicker than anybody in the industry. And my team specifically has impressed me incredibly. Even junior engineers or technicians are now writing Terraform. And I've gotten specific feedback from my software engineers that they are picking this up quicker than they did when they were initially learning it. So you just have to give them the opportunity. You just need to push them off the cliff. Send them out of the nest and they're going to flourish. Like we had to learn HDSDI and then we had to learn networking and multicast and IGM, like all this stuff to be able to now understand Kubernetes and Docker and CI/CD and Git. These, you just learn more and more and more as you evolve down this journey, but you can take an individual and I've found that if you say, please get your AWS SA certification and get your Terraform certification, and you can help us build the future. And they're inspired by that. They can help you. And I have seen it firsthand. So if you're wondering in your own organizations, oh, well, maybe this isn't the effective way to scale my team, I've been able to scale my team by doing just that, trusting broadcast engineers.
And to the point about broadcast engineers being superheroes, very, very well described. And I think one of the other things that makes broadcast engineers superheroes is the high standards of like wanting to make sure that there's the right amount of resiliency, wanting to make sure that the programming is the way it needs to be with the highest possible quality. That's both a blessing, but also like, are there times as you were going through this journey where maybe things were being over-engineered up front and people weren't really recognizing the agility that the cloud provides and the fact that, look, you don't need to, it's not like buying a traditional switcher where you have to make a decision that you're going to be stuck with for multiple years. And there's a lot more elasticity and agility that's available.
It's hard for people to conceptualize what the LCP would look like on infrastructure that they've never seen before. So if you say, hey, we're going to build a cloud control room and it's going to have all of the same features that you have on-prem, they just imagine all of the racks that are in our current MERs in AWS, and that's how they envision it. They don't understand that you're running these things on containers and honestly, that's really how AWS is abstracted through EC2s and Lambda functions and all of this jargon that you learn as you go along your AWS journey. So yes, Ali, it's very hard for somebody initially to conceive what a cloud is and then let alone what software and how to build on it ultimately starts to shape out to be. But as long as you put them on this educational journey and you have really well-versed partners that don't like to hear me talk all the time, like, and this is where the value started to come in. I was able to bring David Sabine in the room and have David right here and have a conversation with our operations teams. And I had been saying the same thing for 6 months, but as soon as it came out of David's mouth, they were like, David, you made it make sense for us. So,
That's why we love David.
Of course. And, but it took a lot for us to get to that point, a lot of trial and error and trial by fire. And again, I get it. Like, nobody likes to hear the guy preach from the podium. And, you know, I kind of have been the vocal one in the room for a long time, but my team is now on board because we've had such good partners with Ali, David, and Wes from Monks, and Andrew and Joe and all of these other names that are on board.
I think we appreciate the partnership, and I think, like, you know, there were some pivotal moments, those aha moments where, one, having industry experts such as David come in and talk with the team and address their concerns was key, but also like the seeing is believing moments. Like, and can you talk a little bit about like being able to demonstrate, you know, some of the things that you did to not only be telling the team that, look, this is achievable, but actually show them, even if it was just via a small scale experiment or some type of demonstration?
I had to take a step back and let the team do it for themselves. I had to walk away from it for a while, and it was healthy because then they got their hands dirty. They were the ones that built the control rooms. They were the ones that deployed the software. And I let the team do it because all I needed to do as a leader in this was create the vehicle and get the people in the vehicle and send it on down the road. And I didn't necessarily need to be as close to the build and the deployment. What I found be successful is just get this in their hands, and then that's how they're going to fall in love with it.
And as you were making the vehicle and putting people in the vehicle, we appreciate the fact that you brought along AWS ProServe and Monks. Can you please tell the audience a little bit about how partnering with them not only gave you better delivery capabilities, but also is there advice that you'd give to other broadcasters about how to properly leverage system integrator partners for these types of transformations?
I have a personal story, and it happened on the floor of NAB last year. And we had been working with Monks, and they had been a great partner for ours. But we needed a little bit more AWS expertise, and you're going to run into these situations. And Monks did a great job of deploying solutions in the past, but every deployment is a little bit unique. It's somewhat bespoke for how you want to run your operation. And what we found is there were like very specialized and nuanced things that we needed to be successful in this. So I went to the AWS booth and I said, I need somebody that has actually deployed this here. And it's only been deployed 3 or 4 times for real. This is brand new stuff. So you had to find the people that had actually done the work. Wes has done the work, but not to the way that FanDuel needed to do it. We're kind of a sports thing. And David had worked with another partner that was in the sports space. And when David was able to come on board, now we had the core team to be able to understand FanDuel's vision for what we ultimately needed to build. So that's how this started to shape out. What was the second part of your question?
Advice for other folks who are about to embark on the journey and how they can properly leverage or set up the right mix of team members and integrators to be successful.
Fall on the sword. You got to say, I don't know. I made mistakes. It's okay to do this. You're going to run into brick walls and challenges. And you have to say, I was wrong. This implementation that we tried to do, it didn't work. So fail fast, learn and be curious, like lean into some of the Amazon LPs that they preach. Like they're kind of there for a reason. It's not just learning the infrastructure. It's understanding the way of working and being humble about this whole experience. I'm wrong every single day in some of the choices I make. It's the ability to go back to my organization and even AWS and Wes and say, hey, I made a mistake. I put you down that wrong rabbit hole, but we can pivot quickly with two-way doors, avoid one-way doors, and you'll be more successful. But you have to say out loud that you were wrong. I feel like that's the biggest thing that I've learned in all of this, is just to continually say, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. This is going to be messy.
I also think that the success here has come from this collaboration. I mean, you talked quite rightly about the amazing work that your teams have done across operations and engineering and so on. And across AWS, we have a broad range of contributions, whether it's professional services like myself, our specialist SAs, our business experts, and so on. And then that synergy with partners is really where we get success, because there are definitely overlapping parts, but there are specializations as well. And it's only by leveraging the expertise in each of those areas that we've achieved the success we've achieved.
Yeah, and also having transparency. I think one of the things that we've always tried to make sure we fostered was the sense of, look, if something is going wrong, or if we don't know something, or if there's things, what are the two-way doors? What are the one-way doors? When are we getting to a critical decision point? What are the things that we're certain of? What are the things that we're going to need to experiment with? And how can we help each other be most effective to get to that common goal of success? Because your success becomes our success, our partner's success, industry success, and something that obviously we want to accelerate and make sure that we achieve.
Well said.
And I think it would be remiss of us not to mention our ISV partners as well.
Yes.
So we talked a lot about the engineers and the operations team who are putting these solutions together. But these solutions are comprised of a mix of AWS infrastructure and application software that come from our wide partner network. And they put in significant, representatives of the partners put in significant effort on site to ensure the success of those solutions themselves. So thank you to them as well.
Absolutely. So you're approaching, and FanDuel's approaching, the critical milestone with a shadow period planned for May. NAB obviously is putting a little pause on that. There's other activities you have going on, but as we're getting down that home stretch, what does success look like for you? Like, what's the final validation phase, and what comes after that? And what advice would you give folks and other broadcasters who are just beginning their journey?
Well, I have to ask my operations and production teams, what is the definition of your success? I don't define the success. I build the infrastructure to support their successful outcomes. So it's partnering with operations, partnering with the business, partnering with my operations teams to understand the output. What does up and atoms look like to you? What does run it back look like to you? And how can we quantify that? I'll get the producer in the room. I'll get the operations staff in the room, and I'll make sure that it's a like for like broadcast with the on-prem system versus the cloud system. And we do A/B testing. We do quality analysis. We get really deep into the weeds with all of this as well. But what success looks like to me is unplugging my on-prem facility, and we're running cloud productions on a daily basis, and we're not looking back.
But I think, sorry, just quickly, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. A lot of people that attend this trade show, a lot of people in the audience, maybe we are engineers, we come from an engineering background. But when I start projects like this, I'm always encouraging people to think of success as, can the gal who's going to punch the show for 3 hours sit down in front of that switcher, or the guy who's going to run the audio desk and run that show, produce at least the same production quality, if not better, and not notice the difference. And it's really those creatives and enabling those creative outcomes, I think, are the pinnacle of the success criteria.
And then even identifying, or being able to identify, what are some opportunities to make the experience even more delightful or efficient, or unlock even new capabilities. And I think, there was a lot of times where Eric and your team and your operations team were looking for some of those innovation elements and like, well, obviously lift and shift could work, but like where are ways where we can take this to the next level?
And we're starting to see that. And it's simplified infrastructure. It's being able to have reusable deployments with CI/CD pipelines, with Terraform and Ansible. You don't have to spend as much money on facility infrastructure because you're able to turn the stuff on and off, kind of like a light switch. Certain components can't do that, but I think you kind of get the idea of the types of innovation that occur. And not only just that, broadcast infrastructure on-prem is at FanDuel SOC compliant. Like there are many cases where I have to whitelist the TD panel because like I can't run CrowdStrike on it, for example. And they go, oh, this is not a SOC compliant device. Well, now with all of my infrastructure in AWS, I'm fully SOC compliant. And we partner with the other business to ensure that the systems that we're building meet the rigorous standards that FanDuel and Flutter hold us to. So we're not going to jeopardize other parts of the business with our infrastructure. And these are the types of innovation and opportunities that a lot of people don't think about. But yeah, if you want to be creative with the box as well, if you want to do integrated watch and wager, you want to start to think about what does true interactivity look like? How can you ship these things all around the world instantaneously and stand them up, and time to market doesn't become a problem? Yeah, that the world becomes your oyster at that point. And now that I'm in AWS, what AI can I start to leverage? What types of data can I can create that can close product gaps in other parts of the business? Like this is truly the innovation that's going to start to come out from being able to do this. Like how can I generate, speech to text in real time to be able to send that off to the FanDuel Sportsbook, to be able to query inventory, to surface that back up to the customer in a graphic that's personalized to them within the broadcast, and then play along with it long term. So and then again, it becomes the creativity of the product manager because the technology capability is inherently just there.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent, way to sort of wrap up this conversation, is that the live cloud production piece is just the start of the journey, and really the value that you can continue to add after you've built that piece is very significant.
Especially when you've set up the organization, like that last comment about the product manager being able to really now have a broader set of tools to drive engagement and accomplish your business goals, like setting up the engagement and the teams to do that. Like now we not only have the technology platform, but you're putting in place the organization platform as well.
Yeah, and now we're all on a common set of infrastructure. All of the rest of FanDuel and Flutter is built on AWS. Why isn't the FanDuel TV data center? Why were we stalling and being able to do this? And for a product manager in another part of the business, maybe in PokerStars or Paddy Power, now they can leverage our media system to benefit them, whether it's just reusing our technology. We have a principle at Flutter: build once, reuse everywhere. So I'm doing this, but I'm also leveraging how other people have deployed. That was like the benefit that we got out of the shared services model. And now product managers from all around the business can come and leverage the things that we've been able to create together to ultimately define success long-term for Flutter.
That's it. I think I just want to finish. Thank you so much, Eric. It's been a real pleasure. We work with lots of customers. We've faced some challenges. There's been some difficult conversations, but it's always been a pleasure. And, your team are outstanding, very impressive to work with. And thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I would be remiss to not say that I'm just somebody that ends up talking a lot. But it's the people that do the heavy lifting, the Jeremy and Brett and Clayton and Wes and Corey. This is my team back home. These are the ones that are in the trenches doing the hard work. They're the heroes here. I'm just here, being a vocal advocate for, like this worked for us. It could work for you, but they're the ones that are in there doing the day-to-day work. And I just wanted to give them a shout out.
It's an incredible team with an incredible leader, and we truly appreciate your partnership and all of the innovation opportunities you've given us and the exciting future we have together ahead. And thank you to the audience for joining us at the end of NAB Day. We're going to be off to the side of the stage. Feel free to come up, ask questions, and we really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.